Good morning, party people. Yes, it is morning. The rest of the world hadn't seen it yet, but I'm one of those people that see it bright and early. Hey, today's weekend review, I started off at home and went out to Terre Haute, Indiana to help David with his T5R. He was having a crank no start issue. We narrowed it down to the car wasn't getting spark most of the time while cranking, so it wouldn't start. The weird thing was, as soon as we let go of the key, it would get a little bit of spark, like on one or two cylinders, and it would stumble, like it was trying to start. Really weird, letting go of the key and that happening. So we were digging, changing different things. Finally, I come to the conclusion, and with the help of a couple people, suggesting that the car may not be getting, or the block, the engine, may not be getting the ground it needed. So I went to the auto parts store, bought some 4 gauge wire, made a few wires, and I bridged the transmission and the engine together with these wires. Transmission had a couple of empty ground locations on it. Uh, Chased those bolts. Engine had one or two of those. Chased those bolt holes, and I connected like two or three of these 4 gauge wires between the engine and transmission, and that thing fired right up every time. So this video shows a little bit of that process. Very frustrating. What a lot of people have to do is split the engine and transmission, re-clean those surfaces, and reattach them. For some reason, Volvo put a couple of large grounds on the transmission, but they didn't do that into the engine. They figured the engine and the transmission being bolted together would create that ground it needs. So, unfortunately, sometimes it loses that good connection between the two. Not sure why. I did find that a couple of bolts that bolts the transmission to the engine had worked themselves loose over the 18 20 months that stuff had been together. I found 3 loose bolts. I torqued all the transmission bolts again, actually bumped it up 5 foot-pounds, cleaned a couple of grounds that was on the engine, and the thing fires up every time now. So that could be really frustrating, man. It took a lot of hours, unfortunately, troubleshooting that, but now I know. But again, the weird thing was, it would not give any spark until we let go of the key, about 50% of the time. And we did have a cam sensor code because of it, but cam sensor was good. So got through that, started rebuilding the S60, and ran into a unpleasant surprise. And that is, we budgeted for a certain amount, got down to it, car didn't have two good headlights, two bad headlights. Headlights $950 a piece. Talking about breaking a budget. You add 2 G's to a rebuild, and that hurts. So be careful with planning on rebuilding cars. We're not going to break out 2 G's for that car. Probably going to part it out. So we got a T6 S60 P3 car. Most of the parts are the same between 2011 2013. So if you need some parts, this car has a lot of good parts. Contact me, we'll get them to you. First of the year, going to come out with a couple more t-shirts. One of them's going to say good morning party people, and the other one's going to say completing the task at hand. So if you like stuff like that, fun stuff, we'll have an inexpensive run. Maybe start adding an expensive run. Some of these expensive t-shirts, 30-40 bucks, but they're good quality shirts, probably last 10 years. The other t-shirts, worn weekly, maybe a couple times a month, last about 4 years before they start deteriorating. So anyway, I appreciate you all watching. Hope you're having a good holiday season, and be safe. What's happening, party people? Man, I have enjoyed this light. One of my supporters gave me this light probably 3-4 years ago. When the real bright light, you could put it on a tripod right there. You could use it to charge other devices, and about a year ago it just quit wanting to take a charge, and now it doesn't take a charge at all. So I took some screws out of it. I got them screwed in now. I think they're T15s. Let me remove these 4 screws and show you what's going on in here. So I take a T15 screwdriver, unscrew these 4 screws, and I was able to lift this up nice and easy. And when I got in here, this is all I seen. The little micro mini charging port, USB port, and these lights here that light up as it charges, the button to cut it off and on. I guess this is the light panel, and this is where this battery was. So this battery had wax on it, kind of the craft wax people use. So I pulled it out, peeled it off, and found these numbers on there, and I put those numbers in a search. You could do search Amazon, eBay, whatever you prefer, and it came up with a battery. Now this panel light, I can replace this thing with the tripod hole. I think something just as nice to charge other items. Man, that thing was like 30 bucks. So I jumped on Amazon and found one. Let me show you what it was on Amazon. So here it is on Amazon, free delivery if you got Prime, and that's what I did. So about half price, you can get a battery to replace it with. And here it is, arrived today, all sealed up in an approved package. Let's get it open, put this insulation foam around it, and see if it'll plug in. Just try to make sure you get the same connector on the end. Looks like the same exact connector. So let's see if we can get it to plug in. Now be careful plugging it in. I actually felt one of these wires felt like they moved in the connector. So you plug it in, don't push it too hard. You don't want to break the solder down there. When it was plugging in, I seen a light flicker over here. So maybe that means something is working. I'm gonna put it in here this way. Don't remember how I got it out of there, which I don't know, maybe bad, but it came out of there one way. Pay attention to how you get it out of there. So you could test it and then put it back together. It's only 4 screws, but let's see. Push the button once. We got all lights, so it's already charged up. I think at this setting, you can actually charge things in it. I don't see any light on. Push it again. Oh, yes, the light's working now. The light dimmed down. The light's flashing. It's flashing faster. All right, that's probably all of its functions. So let me see if I can get this backing back on, but these handles come out of those 2 channels. So make sure your handle's in right. And put your back on. That doesn't quite fit. That thing has to go that way. I believe this is the way it goes in here. I'm gonna have to massage that in correctly and put the screws in. I decided to fit the battery in up like that, and I noticed these screws have little grommets on there to stop them from falling out. So let's go ahead and tuck the wire in the top piece up there and then try to screw it together. Went together a lot easier after tucking that battery up in the top like that. Now, one thing I did notice is my switch is damaged. Plastic is broken. Something I could put some kind of tape over or something to safeguard that. Try to waterproof it. There I have it. Add it back together. Need to clean it up. My little handle still works. Still have my way to plug it in. And nice and bright. We're back in business. When it dies, I'm going to try to charge it up. I'll let you know if I have any charging issues. What I cooked for Thanksgiving and some gravy. and what my wonderful bride cooked for Thanksgiving. Wow. And there's a cheesecake somewhere. Ran into somebody that had a S60 like Elizabeth's. Didn't have the same wheels, a little bit older, but his daughter hit a deer close to the house. So I think I'm gonna part out an S60. I was thinking about rebuilding it, but I don't think it'd be worth it. May not. The thing that gets me is matching paint and stuff like that. So I think I'm gonna part it out. It's a T6. It's got the T6 engine turbo. It still runs and drives, even like this. So if anybody wants any parts, it's got a dark interior, let me know. And maybe we'll get you some parts, kind of cheap. This is most of the damage here. I'm going to replace the inner tie rod in on this S60. This one broke. What you need to do is get inside, turn the steering wheel all the way to the left, and that will give you just enough space to break it loose. It'll barely stick out far enough where you could put the pipe wrench on it. Of course, you pull the boot off of it and you screw this end out of here. Count your screws. That may be tough because, man, that thing really twisted there. I've never seen a tie rod end snap off like that. But sometimes you hit something hard enough, that's what'll happen. So let's go get inside, turn the wheel all the way to the left, take the boot off, and unscrew it from the rack. Look at that thread pitch, that's incredible. It was like 26.5 turns to get that out of there. I turn this all the way in to the left, which pushed this out. I'm gonna go ahead and break that clip in there and pull that boot off. Let's see if I can reach that, get some light on it. Now you got to remember to tighten this tight enough so that this doesn't come loose when you're screwing this into your outer tie rod end. Now of course you see this is not going to reach and screw in there with this like this. You can remove this outer tie rod in the joint, or you could take that steering wheel and turn that thing back to the right, and then this will go in there and screw in for you. So I got the tie rod in, I got the boot in. I don't have it clipped on the inside because I'm not planning on taking this car nowhere for it. That's the clip that could go on there. I just turn this down. So it's alignment. This car is probably not going to drive more than a couple blocks. So I'm just going to snug that down, put the wheel on, and unless somebody buys this thing whole, it's just going to drive a couple of blocks. So I'm going to go ahead, I tighten that one down. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this one down just in case somebody wants to drive this thing somewhere, which I don't recommend, but hey, they might. My alignment job is clearly off. That wheel over there is pointing straight. This one is pointing a little bit to the left. So I'm going to break this nut, screw this thing in, a couple more turns, and then that'll be close enough to move it around without any steering binding up. On this P3 Volvo S60, there's two different kind of sprayers that you can have. You can have the single sprayer like that, or you can have this dual sprayer that has some kind of electronics in it. So if you're picking up a sprayer, make sure you get the proper one for the equipment in the vehicle. Kicking off the Tinker Day, and it is snowing. I need to connect the drive shaft back on this vehicle because I disconnected it when I towed it. Then I forgot and drove it, I don't know, 60, 70 feet with the drive shaft tied against the exhaust. So hopefully I didn't mess up that drive shaft, but let me get under here, jack it up, and hook that drive shaft back up. Got the shaft back together, 8mm bolts, or I think it's a T50. Yeah, T50. Good morning, how are you all?
Fine. Happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, you too. Be safe. So now I could drop this thing back down and get to work on the engine. Actually, what I'm gonna do next is find a power amp to ship to someone that traded me a power amp for a grill. I'm gonna see if Lemonade has one. I'll take the power amp out of that because that doesn't have a special radio. And for some reason, the cassette deck stopped working, so I gotta replace that anyway. So let me dig in there, see if I got a power amp, and deal with this intake manifold and rest of these engine parts later today. Well, while this thing was up in the air, I put it in neutral to try to spin the shaft. That didn't work. But while it was in the air, battery died. Won't let me put it in park, won't let me set the parking brake. So I'm gonna swap out the battery and then put this thing in park, set the parking brake, and then pull it off these jacks. Because right now it's not rolling. But if I let it down, it may roll. It's in neutral, no parking brake set. Like this electronic stuff. Another battery for the charger out of this new to us S60. I'm gonna test it, see where it's at, and then put it on the charger. I think I'm gonna put this one with 650 cold cranking amps in Panther, just for those extra cold cranking amps on the road. But let me go ahead and test this one. I'll never figure out why people don't date their batteries when they put them in. This one doesn't seem to have a sticker on it anywhere, does it? No. Really can't figure out how many cold cranking amps it has. Maybe it's that there, 730. Let me go ahead and test it. 10.6 volts. It couldn't turn the car on, set the parking brake, or put it in park. It seemed like it's climbing because it's in this warm room. I got it power too low. Told it to continue. 0 health, 0 charge. 28 cold cranking amps. Not sure why it died, but let me go ahead and try to charge. Got it on the charger, and it's doing something, so there may be hope. It's running through a cycle here before it locks in. Whenever a battery's that low, I expect it to take at least 6 hours to charge, but we'll see. It's testing level 3 on the tester here. Well, Lemonade does have an amp, so I'm gonna go ahead and take it out of here. The cassette player didn't work in it when I tried it the other day, so I'm also gonna swap that radio out and see if this other one has a good cassette. Just make sure it ain't the cassette adapter, and if it works in the cassette, I'm gonna mark that one as having a bad tape deck. Let me get this amp out of here. This one is working fine, so I'm gonna run with this one and put the other one on ice for repairs. I'm gonna open it up and see if the belt's broken. Next, I'm gonna test the climate control unit. I'm thinking about sending to somebody to see if it works, make sure it goes through all the functions, and then send it out. If their stuff don't work after that, then I know there's something else within their vehicle that's causing their climate control not to work. Well, this one's blowing on high no matter where I have it set, so I'm gonna call it bad and try to find another one. I'm gonna replace the blower motor with an aftermarket one. This one's squealing, especially when I make left turns or right turns, one or the other. So I'm gonna do that. And I noticed that the bottom of this dash pad, where it screws in up this way, is broken, and it's lifting off away from there. So I'm gonna have to either epoxy that plastic together or whatever works for that, or replace this dash pad. It's a nice dash pad, so I had to figure something out. Anyway, let me get this glove box out, get this knee bolster out, get this fan out, and replace it. I just noticed the tabs are broken on the edge of this vent, causing this vent not to be locked in all the way, so I gotta find one of those and replace it. Plug the power in and make sure it works. Works good, so let me go ahead and install it. This is a Hella Bear fan that I found in the car in the salvage yard while I was out in the Bay Area. It might have been in here 30,000 miles, and now I'm pulling it out, and I'm gonna lubricate it and put on the shelf for a spare. I don't think this one's ever been installed. I don't see any scratch marks from screws. However, I do see, looks like a manufacturing or stress crack there. Super clean, so I doubt it's ever been installed. So let me go ahead and put it in and see how long this one lasts. For some reason, I could not get my glove box sleeve back into this gosh dang dash. Now it's pushing on my door. Sucks. Probably cracked that down there. Don't know how long that's been going on. These sleeves have a stud on them on both sides. I can't get that to lock in, or something's stopping it from going in the back. Something's going on. It's driving me nuts. It won today. I'll deal with it another day because I gotta get on the move. Folks, here is PR, the Volvo from hell. We're going to transfer these stickers over to that car right there. But we're going to see if this thing will start after sitting here. How long has it been here? 4 months, Tony?
Oh, wait, it was supposed to be 6 days.
Shoot, I don't even hear the fuel pump. Boom! Second try. I'll take that. Well, time to kick off my winter travel. Officially, I don't think winter starts till December 21st, but man, it is 22 degrees outside, and it's got a wind chill of 13. And I still haven't put my winter tires on, so that's my first step. Put on my winter tires. So let me get out here and do that. I'm going to go break all the lug nuts loose, come inside, get my floor jack, and do 2 at a time. I had to get all my wheels set. I'm glad they're not on any vehicles, so I can just swap them over, because you don't want to be out there and get caught in some snow and then risk losing traction. Right now, Panther's still down because I hadn't found my transmission part, and I got to take lemonade. I really don't like doing that. I don't want that car getting salty and stuff like that. This is probably going to be the car's first time seeing salt. So let's get out there, see what's going on, and see what we need to do. I guess it's time to replace my calipers in the rear. This is the right side. The outer pad was worn down to that. The inner pad was worn down to that. The driver's side, the pad was worn down to that. Just about totally gone. And then the inner pad had more meat than this one. But I couldn't move the piston, so I had to leave it and didn't pull the pad. So I'll get some calipers for this thing and replace them soon. One of my viewers said that whenever a caliper gets stuck, it gets stuck and it drags on the rotor, and that's not always true. As you can see, that rotor in there is not clean because it hasn't been having brakes applied to it. See if I can see it up here. And it's hard to see it with the camera. Do. See how rusty looking that rotor is? Because it had no brakes applied on it. That's the rotor right there. Kicked off the tinker day, or should I say night, because it is, well, I've been actually tinkering. I did a brake job, I did wheel installs, but we are in Terre Haute, Indiana with David, and we did the heater core on his new to him wagon, 850R wagon. Pinched off the hoses here, and man, they're a pain to reach with this big turbo tube in here, but we love our turbo tubes. We have a intermittent spark issue on this thing, which means most of the time there's no spark. Usually it'll give a spark as we let off the key, but doesn't spark while you're cranking, almost never. So we're going to dig into this and try to figure out what's pulling back our spark while we're cranking. Next up, headliner, and this one is already out. Knocking it off for tonight. Man, this is some good headliner material David has here. And that stuff went down really well. What the heck is that? Was that on there or where'd that come from?
This thing, I think I might have made it a little worse.
Oh, you was trying to scratch it off too?
Not a big deal.
No, man. Not compared to what it was. I mean, sheesh. I see a little bit of puddling in here. See these little ripples? They'll probably wear out after a couple weeks. It's like the foam gets stretched around. All right, that's it for tonight. Kicking off the tinker day. It is 23 degrees out here, and it looks like my odometer is frozen. Oh my goodness. Let's see if it starts working a little later, but that's not good. Kicking off the tinker day in a heated shop. It's almost the only way you could do it in the winter. We're going to start off by trimming this headliner material. And it's got a couple of bumps in here that I didn't notice yesterday, but hopefully they'll smooth out. And man, it's a lot better than the hanging material. We'll see. This was rolled up for many, many months. And probably years, he said. Let's grab the blades and start trimming. Got that headliner in place over here. Let me get back on this yellow car and see if I get this thing to fire up every time. I just added a couple of grounds. I pinched a jumper cable from here to there, from the engine to that mount. Let me go see if it fires up. I hooked up the battery. Been having problems with this green wire on this relay backing out for some reason. It's there now, so let's go see if this thing fires up with some extra ground wire. Check out that key ring. Let's keep searching for why we don't have spark. The extra grounds didn't work. Next up, crank sensor. This should get that crank sensor bolt that's buried down in there. And we got a parts card, folks. Whoop, whoop. We're still not getting solid spark. And the next thing I'm gonna check is something in the immobilizer system via the alarm. Now, when I lock the car with the hood latches closed and everything, I get the solid red light for a couple of seconds, and then that light starts flashing like it should. However, when I breach the back door, I unlock the door, open the door, the alarm doesn't sound. However, if I open the front door, put the key in ignition, and try to start it, I do not get a crank. So even though the alarm's not sounding, it is deactivating the starter with the immobilizer system, but it's still not sounding the alarm and the light's still flashing in the dash. So something's going on with the alarm system. So we're going to go under the dash and look for the relay that controls that, replace that relay, and see if that helps us somehow. Lots of weird alarm stuff going on, but we're headed to lunch. Back from lunch, back at it. We're going to check a couple things on this coil and move forward. So we replaced the coil, went back to a Bosch, did a couple of checks. Of course, we already replaced the cam sensor, crank sensor, and we had to start a couple times with the replaced coil, but we went on ahead and replaced the starter because he do remember most of these issues starting after he replaced starter. We had one replaced starter. The car has started 5 times in a row. Little bit of a long crank, which I think can be related to weak, older fuel pumps. And took a look at the fuel pump. It does look older, like it probably should be replaced. So that's something we're gonna put on the list and go from there. We're gonna move this one out and bring another one in. Just did a full tune-up on it. Spark, plugs, rotor, cap, wires. It had the wrong plugs in there. It had NA plugs in there. instead of turbo plug. So we're looking for the battery clip so we can put it out for a couple minutes and check out another ride for a few minutes. Well, this car started several times right after another, and we gave it a tune-up, went to move it, won't start. So we are digging into wiring diagrams, trying to see possibly what is cutting spark from this vehicle. Here we are, folks, back at it. I am taking the engine compartment apart, chasing wires. The main culprit is probably under this number 5 cylinder intake manifold. I'm gonna take that apart, clean it up real good, put all this stuff back together and hope it starts. As you can see, it's had some wire connections rebuilt or made. It's had a lot of aluminum foil put on different things. We've replaced almost every sensor under here and made sure they're all hooked up and working right. Probably some kind of weak ground in this vehicle somewhere, who knows from what. One of my mechanics told me that it's possible that the crank is walking away from the crank sensor, causing this. But since it's a cam sensor error code, it's probably some kind of ground issue somewhere. And it may be that it has lost good ground contact in between the engine and transmission. This transmission was put on this car not quite 2 years ago, probably 18 to 20 months ago. So I hope I don't have to pull the transmission off to re-clean those mating surfaces. What I'm going to do is pull the intake manifold off, the exhaust manifold off, get rid of this EGR tube around here, replace those with a Japanifold, and say yeah again one more, honey.
Yay!
And replace the intake manifold with one from a 98 vehicle, this vehicle here, and add a couple of ground wires from the block to the transmission and put all this stuff back together and, man, go race some Priuses, hopefully. So let me get back to work and give you guys an update as we continue to wrench on this thing. We have the intake manifold off, the exhaust manifold off, and we're thinking maybe some of our issues may lie with these ground bundles here. I see this ground bundle was rebuilt. Let me put some light on it. And here's a ground wire for something. I need to figure out what that goes to and get this stuff redone. Then I'm gonna attach a couple of grounds from there over to the transmission to try to firm up some continuity between the transmission and the engine and see if that helps us. We're trying to get this done. About to clean up some of this stuff. I got my phone dying, so I got to go ahead and charge it up. And I'll get back with you. So I got a thread chaser on this. Clean the thread out. I'm going to put this cable on it. And I'm going to hook the cable up to that transmission bolt there. So I got to pull that bolt, clean that off. Make this cable shorter so it's not in the way of anything. Oh, that's the end that came on the cable from the store. I put this end on. I kind of put it in the vise. Then I pinched the edge of it with some vice grips and with the vise. So this thing should not come off. You could check it with an ohm meter, but this is some nice 4-gauge wire I'm going to use to try to bridge some grounding between the engine and transmission. Not sure if you guys seen how simple these slave cylinders are, but you got the little rod that comes out here. I dropped that, not sure where it fell, but I'll find it later. It goes through this little plunger dust boot thing, and it sticks in this little tip of this thing here. Now that comes out, and it has a seal around it, and all the fluid is held behind it by that seal, and it has a spring that keeps some pressure on it, and that's it. The rest of it's just a barrel down there. So that's all you got. A little tube with a spring in it, a plunger in it, a rod in it, and a dust boot over it. Very simple. And that's the very tip of it. The boot clips around that shoulder of it. Subframe is down. I'm going to do this power steering return line. That thing has been leaking like crazy. And then we're going to start putting this thing back together after we replace the subframe bushings. Brand new Volvo OEM subframe bushings. We are going to be rocking and rolling, making this car more comfortable. Got these Volvos out like this, and you need to do subframe bushings. You just set that thing there. Come right down. Not sure if you know it, but the front subframe bushing mount, driver's front, is different from the driver's rear. However, I think they discontinued this one that's got the football shape to it, and you have to use all of them that are around now. So that's what we got. We're going to get 4 of them put in. The new ones have different rubber in them than the old ones did. The old ones had these slits on the sides. These just have a cut in the sides of them. Had a groove on both sides. These have like a guide on the side. And these two ends are the same. So there you have it. New and updated subframe bushings. So to get these subframe bushings in, you got to press them. If you don't have a press, you could use the subframe hardware to press it in. There's a chance you might ruin a subframe bolt if you do it, so be careful. I can see the threads on this looks beat up. But anyway, you put this through the bottom like it would go. You set this on top. You set the cup on there. Find a thick washer, put that on there. I want a little washer so the nut doesn't go through. I found a 21 millimeter nut, maybe a strut nut that goes on top. So I want to hold that on top like so, and then drive it in from the bottom with a big impact. It'll go in so far and stop because of the way that's cut, that washer shape. Then you flip this washer over and press it in as far as you can the rest of the way. It's like halfway in right now. So I flip the washer over. So now the washer's like this. It won't hit the bushing. I run it back in the nut there. Make sure it's kept on there like that. Now I run it the rest of the way in pretty much with this until it shanks out again. As soon as it stops, you back. And if you look here, you can see it's 80-90% in. Whack it a couple of times with a sledgehammer and it'll go the rest of the way in. So that's it. Just try to keep it lined up like it is with the bushing tips pointing front and back, and you should be good to go. 2 with the sledgehammer, quick. And it's all the way down. And you're done. We are back to the T5R, about to kick off the Tinker Day. Start putting this thing back together after I add another ground wire or 2. And David is cleaning this subframe. It's gonna be like new. 2 more horsepower. Swapped an exhaust manifold, so we gotta swap an intake manifold, and we're going with a 98 manifold. Has an extra port on it that will plug. Cleaning it up now. I'm gonna swap over the throttle body. Had just about everything apart. Just about everything's back together. We're gonna see if it'll start. Yep. Man, listen to that magic. Magic. Woohoo! If you have a manual transmission and the IPD skid plate, which I highly recommend, especially if you have a lower car, it will likely bump here and here. Part of your manual transmission. This is rubbing and that is rubbing. Now, I don't know what the solution to that is, other than cut a little piece out of here to make that miss it. But this car even has new mounts, so it's not the mounts. I've seen that once before on another vehicle. Look like my ground wire is trying to come loose out of there. I need to pinch that in there, make sure that don't come loose, and cover that up with something. Well, folks, the car is firing up every time. We added a couple ground wires, retorqued the transmission bolts, cleaned up some grounds under the intake manifold, made sure all that stuff was routed in a good way, and I think we've cured our problem. But we're going to take a break, go get something to eat, come back and finish up. We are back from lunch. I'm going to finish putting this thing together, heat seal, lines, stuff like that, and get it out of here. Well, folks, we are finally done with the yellow. We got the lowering springs on the front, not on the back. We got the wheels torqued. Everything is together in here. This is kind of broken, so I don't know if that's ever going to be right. But we're about to shut it down and move it out. Yep, we got those in too. So let me go ahead and check the oil, close the hood, and see if this clutch works. As you can see, the yellow car is out, the red one's in. We're gonna check timing, check codes, and see what else we got to get into tonight. Well, we're scanning it. As far as I could tell, this thing might be off 2 or 3 teeth, at least 2 teeth. So let's scan it. See what we get as far as codes. Well, this is what I got for codes. I don't see anything about timing. Switching over here to delivery. Oil pressure, fault value, temperature, belt buckle, front seat, siren communication, ECM, speed sensor, camshaft position, too high. Couple more things here. Just got done with the S60. Got lemonade in here. We're going to replace the wipers, man. These wipers on here are no longer doing the job. It's like there's some stupid film on the glass that needs to be cleaned off. So let me try to do that and then find these PL wiper blades and get them installed. Looks like we got the wipers installed. I don't know, seems like something's on that windshield to me, but we'll see how these new wipers work out for us. And we're about to head to the hotel. If you made it this far, I trust that you found some information that was either useful or entertaining, so go ahead and hit the like button. And if you would like notification of future videos that I post, please subscribe to the channel. I appreciate your support. You can follow me on other social media apps by looking for @RobertDIY. Some form of that should bring up the other channels that I have on places like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and so forth. If for some reason you need some more personal help, go to my website at robertdiy.com and use the phone number that I have posted there to send me a text message, or you can email me. If you have questions or comments, please make a comment below. And if you'd like to make some kind of financial contribution to what I got going on here, go to my channel and hit the more link at the end of the introduction statement, and it'll show you different ways that you can support me financially. Again, thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day.